Hello, this is David Gottfried, and this is my essay, Black Bigotry in the 2020 Presidential Elections. I am in a bad mood because I have just witnessed the state of South Carolina and assorted Super Tuesday Southern states catapult Joe Biden into the front-runner status for the Democratic nomination. This was done, in large measure, by politicians and preachers who spoke with all the sincerity of O.J. Simpson's family members telling us that they wouldn't rest until they found O.J.'s wife's killer. These people may have inflicted a mortal wound on Bernie Sanders. At the outset, I must state that I know that many blacks supported Sanders are not in any way tainted by anti-Semitism and approach political dynamics with unwavering perceptiveness and acute intelligence. However, the bright and gifted blacks seem to be drowned out by the old church ladies. I must make one further introductory comment. Although I support Bernie Sanders, I am in no way affiliated with his campaign. The ideas I express are my own, and I'm sure he would be offended by my condemnation of his black opponents. Now, blacks also evinced an intense disdain toward Pete Buttigieg. Although Buttigieg is far too conservative on economic issues for my tastes, he was far and away the most intelligent, articulate, and disciplined candidate in the field. His mind overtakes Joe Biden like a sleek racing car flying over a donkey. What do Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg have in common? They are both members of minority groups that blacks have been trained to despise. Sanders, of course, is Jewish, and Buttigieg is gay. African Americans are the descendants of 400 years of a brand of so-called Christianity that bellows for hellfire and damnation, that internalized the brutality of their slave masters and the severity of their circumstances makes them loath to smile upon those who are different. When one has suffered a lot, sometimes one is not interested in the liberation of others. Sometimes one's resentment makes one want others to suffer too. Also, when a black man is anti-Jewish or anti-gay, he shares in the prejudices of the white South, can imagine that he is somehow a part of the white South and thereby can feel less oppressed. Black bigotry toward gay people and Jewish people is chronic and marked. In the early part of this century, liberal California voted down a proposition to reduce certain forms of discrimination against gay people, and the black population was instrumental in defeating this civil rights legislation. In the 1968 teacher strike in New York City, blacks protested that their children were not getting an education because of Jewish teachers, and one so-called black activist read a so-called poem on radio station WBAI, which consisted of these words: "Hey, you Jew boy, with that yarmulke on your head. Oh, how I wish you would drop dead." Also, African Americans often ardently oppose the state of Israel. Of course, some people are opposed to Israel because of the nation's alleged confiscation of Arab lands. However, I have met blacks who hate Israel who don't know anything about the Mideast. Once I was talking to a black girl about politics. The subject of Israel came up. She promptly wanted to tell me who she was for, but she really didn't know. First she said she was for the Egyptians. Then she said she was for the Arabians, not Arabs, rather the Arabians. And then she said she was for the Iranians. She did not know whom she favored. She only knew she was against the Jews. Of course, the commentators all tell us that blacks like Biden and oppose Sanders because Biden was Obama's Veep and therefore had a close rapport with him. If this is the case, they are completely ignorant of how vice presidents are chosen, and they are bigoted if they believe that Obama had to have been good. Vice presidents are chosen by presidential nominees because they are seen as assets toward winning the election. Since John F. Kennedy was a Catholic from Massachusetts, he needed a Southern Protestant, and he picked Lyndon Johnson as his Veep, even though the Kennedys and Lyndon Johnson were mortal enemies. Eisenhower hated Richard Nixon so much that on the eve of the 1960 election, when asked how Nixon had helped his administration, he said he would have to think about it. FDR had so little to do with his final vice president, Harry Truman, that at the time FDR died, Harry Truman did not know a thing about the Manhattan Project. Finally, if Obama really loved Biden, why didn't he endorse him? Biden had been on the ropes, and before South Carolina, he was as good as dead. But Obama seemed to be indifferent. Finally, I find it hard to believe that Obama and Biden are buddies because of news stories in 2008 to the effect that Biden said that Obama was clean and bright and spoke well. Why did Biden say that Obama was clean? What did Biden mean when he said Obama was clean? And why can Biden speak English coherently? Furthermore, even if Biden were close to Obama, why would that make Biden good? Do you contend that Obama was good because he was black? That's a fundamentally racist contention. Obama was a deeply flawed man. Since most of his defenders are from the so-called left end of the spectrum, I will demonstrate that he was rotten as a progressive. First, consider the millions of poorer homeowners who lost their homes during his administration. In the wake of the 2008 crash, many homeowners were subject to foreclosure. The Obama administration was involved in establishing certain agencies charged with protecting homeowners from foreclosures. However, Obama let those agencies become thoroughly dominated by banks, and foreclosures soared. Second, although poor homeowners were massacred, the rich did better than ever. The Dow Jones was between 6,000 and 7,000 in March of 2009. And when Obama retired, the Dow was somewhat over 20,000. Third, while Obama presided over the dizzying success of Wall Street, 4 million additional factory jobs were lost in the Rust Belt. Fourth, the number of enforcement actions brought by the EPA against polluters plunged. There was no time or room to itemize the long list of demerits in his record, but I'll close with this goodie. Obama declined to try to get Medicare to bargain with Big Pharma to lower prices. But after all, that supposed paragon of progressive politics got more money from Big Pharma than either Hillary or John McCain. Of course, Obama said he did not accept money from lobbyists and deftly engineered the impression that he was untainted by big money. But he did not need lobbyists to get big money. Corporations gave contributions directly to Obama and his PACs. Obama was the ultimate phony liberal. Of course, blacks posit another reason why they like Biden. They allege that he is a good friend of the black community. Anyone who takes this seriously has a very short memory. Do you remember what happened in June of 2019? During debates among the Democratic contenders for the nomination, Kamala Harris, the black senator from the state of California, said that Biden had strong and disturbing ties to racists and was an opponent of black aspirations. Many blacks seemed to erupt in a chorus of "You go, girls." However, when Obama faced off against Sanders, black politicos decided Biden was their bosom buddy. With all due respect to the haughty and caustic black foreman of the Southern plantation of blacks, His Arrogant Excellency, Mr. James Clyburn, when were you guys telling the truth, and when were you lying? In June of 2019, when you deemed Biden a racist, or now when you deem Biden your true blue brother? Also, if black Americans objectively analyzed Biden's record and speeches, they would deplore him, not applaud him. Just consider a few blemishes on Biden's record. 1. His Biden-Eagleton Amendment restricted the ability of HEW to desegregate schools. 2. He was such a fierce opponent of federal spending that he was acclaimed and honored by Howard Jarvis, who was aligned with Ronald Reagan and company. 3, he, being Biden, was one of only 19 senators who voted against Hubert Humphrey's full employment bill. Now, that stuff might seem too ancient, so let's fast forward to his tenure as Obama's beep. 4, he was known as the soft underbelly of the Obama administration, i.e., when Mitch McConnell wanted to fuck up the Democrats, he dealt with Joe Biden. He did not deal with his opposite number in the Senate, Harry Reid. Biden, very simply, would give up the store to the Republicans. For example, when McConnell in 2011 threatened to shut down the government, Biden's opening bid was an offer to shave $4 trillion in federal spending, and his proposed cuts favored spending cuts to tax hikes by 3-1. In 2012, when Republicans wanted to vote against raising the debt ceiling, Biden offered huge cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. Now, interestingly, although Republicans vociferously demanded budget slashing, and Biden always agreed like a neoliberal mouse, when Trump became president, he made the deficit balloon to dizzying heights. I think both Biden and the Republicans knew that there was no need to cut spending. They just wanted to screw the poor and aid the rich. But back to the list of Biden's fools. 5, he was responsible for making Timothy Geithner of Goldman Sachs Treasury Secretary. 6, he convinced Obama to reject a public option for health care. 7, he tells lies to burnish his credentials with black people, having told a bogus story of having been arrested when trying to see Nelson Mandela. And 8, his actions restricted the ability of bankruptcy judges to reduce one's debt to bankers. But this should not surprise anyone. His nickname in the Senate was the Senator from MasterCard. When he says he cares for the little guy and the blue-collar guy, believe me, it's a goddamn fucking act. Now, you might not want to consider the facts. It might bore you. You might want your political coverage to be light, airy-fairy, and laden with human interest stories designed to make fat, stupid women everywhere coo and commiserate and stop thinking. Indeed, on the eve of the South Carolina primary, I saw film footage in which a large, proud, buxom black lady explained why she was going to vote for Biden. She said that he had experienced a lot of death. This is true. And that therefore he knew about pain and would therefore be more understanding of her predicament. What a muddled and meager mind that woman had. When Richard Nixon was a child, 2 of his brothers died, and they were also children when they died. That did not make Nixon a sensitive man. If we were to examine the life story of Adolf Hitler, I am sure we can find some tearjerkers, but he was not exactly the sensitive type. One will not necessarily be an Albert Schweitzer because one has suffered. I mean, the political debates and discourse is so utterly moronic, it's disgusting. A politician can win people over by emoting and telling sob stories that would win the Barbara Walters seal of approval for schmuckiness. Now, sometimes black people have voted for politicians because they emote in a down-home, folksy manner as sticky as candied yams and macaroni and cheese. For example, they applauded Jimmy Carter, and Southern blacks voted overwhelmingly for him over Ted Kennedy in 1980, even though Carter cut back on aid to cities and the poor. But Carter had a reassuring Southern accent and said in his nauseatingly syrupy voice that he would never tell a lie, as if any politician would honestly state that he does not tell lies. I should hasten to add that northern educated, younger, urban, and less religious blacks did flock to the Kennedy banner, but not those southern blacks who just adored Jimmy Carter. Also, most blacks also loved the Clintons because Bill sounded as southern as Gomer Pyle, and this love was not weakened by Bill's decision during the 1992 presidential primaries to show that he was tough on crime by personally witnessing his state's execution of a black man with a compromised mental status. Black love for the Clintons extended to Hillary, and she stole the show from Bernie in 2016, even though she called black men predators in the course of campaigning for the mid-1990s draconian crime bill. Black people have certainly suffered. However, suffering does not necessarily confer wisdom, and much of Black America is certainly no fount of wisdom in this political season. Thank you. Goodbye. Again, this is David Gottfried.